Vice President Pakwesi Emisa Arthur is expected to address the people of that area in the Upper West region. The theme is the game changer for the economy, the role of the regional level governors. Now, we can go to Lawra. Let's find out why game changing for the economy. And Lawra is starting off with an elaborate show of culture. Dancing, that is. Rafiq Salam should join us in a bit. But you can share your thoughts with me on any of the issues you're discussing this morning. There's Joy News on TV, on Facebook. There's Kemini Nyamani on Facebook as well. And I tweet at Kemini or at Joy News on TV. I'm not sure why I'm full of smiles, but I'm sure I'm positive it has to do with the theme for the celebration. And why and why we decided to start off the game changing for the economy event with drumming and dancing. I'm just wondering what it has got to do with the economy and changing things the way they are at the moment. Maybe Rafiq Salam, when he joins us, will share with us what all of that is about. I understand Rafiq is back. Rafiq!
Hello, Kamini.
Rafiq, thank you very much for your time here on News Desk.
Thank you very much.
I really want to know what's going on in Lawra at the moment. What has the dancing got to do with the economy?
It's not a Lawra. It's happening in UWIR, the capital of the Upper West region. And you know, an opening ceremony like this, the region needs to showcase what it really have. And so in the Upper West region, there are so many dancing groups, so many cultures, and then also they have all their dance. And that's why they came there to entertain the people who are really there.
I see. So it's just for entertainment purposes.
It's for entertainment purposes.
But tell us a bit more about the event itself.
You know, regional ministers have been meeting, and then regional ministers have been meeting, and then this is the third time they're meeting regarding this government. And so they came together to deliberate on issues that are affecting them and also try to find ways, find solutions to them. And that's really what they are basically here for these 3 days, and then to discuss about the economy and then the way forward.
I see. From our live pictures here, we see that Vice President Pakwesi Emisa Arthur is about to make his speech. Perhaps in a bit would hold on to a conversation and listen to him. But in the absence of that, well, I understand that we could go now. Rafiq, we'll come back to you. Let's listen to the Vice President now, live from Lawra in the Upper West region.
Distinguished resource persons, I don't know whether the senior citizen who is sitting at this side is also a resource.
Well, we're having challenges with our technology there. We'll deal with it and then bring back that speech from Vice President Pakwesi and Mr. Arthur. But the event is seeing change for the economy, and we would want to get in touch with our correspondents there and find out more about this as Vice President Pakwesi and Mr. Arthur takes the stage to address the crowd. And we should do that in a bit. But in the meantime, you can share your thoughts with me. There's Show News on TV on Facebook.com/ well, let's listen to the Vice President now.
Aminu Suleimani Al-Haji. He has had many previous associations with this region, starting from days long ago as the PNDC Regional Secretary here. So I hear they are referring to you as the doyen of regional ministers. I know that you deserve the title for long service. Now, Chairman, the context of this conference is from the President's 2014 State of the Nation address to Parliament, where he stated, and I wish to quote, that despite the short-term challenges we face, our economic fundamentals remain sound and our mid-term prospects are good. But we have had to take difficult measures to arrest this trend and restore the macroeconomy to good health. While these measures have been unpleasant and difficult to take, ultimately they are necessary to create a good economic environment in which business can continue to not merely survive, but also grow. These are the words of His Excellency the President this year in Parliament. So, Chairman, this is the background for this conference and the theme that has been chosen, the game change for the economy, the role of the regional level of governance. Chairman, the number of experts have called for an early restoration of macroeconomic stability. And when they say this, they mean achieve single-digit inflation, stabilize the exchange rate, and ensure a balance on the external trade. By achieving this stability in the short term, it will allow this country to benefit from the substantial medium-term prospects of the economy. I'd like to explain a few terms for those of you who are not trained as economists so that I can understand the things that I'll be saying. Economists distinguish between the macroeconomy and the microeconomy. The macro, the one with the A, is the aggregate level, is the national level economy developments. The micro, the one with the I, is the small scale, the constituent parts. So when we aggregate the micro, we get to the macro. Consumption and investment decisions at the family unit, at the company level, at the district level, at the regional, district, local levels, are what add up at the national level to what we call the macroeconomy. But because the economy is interrelated, we as individuals in our activities all have a role to play in addressing the weaknesses that occur at the national or macro level. Mr. Chairman, I'd like us to appreciate how these macroeconomic challenges came about, because it will be useful in understanding what the government is doing, how the government is going about restructuring the economy in order to restore the stability the experts insist are required for us to forge ahead. Let me take you back to the 1980s and the fundamental reforms that took place in the economy, because since then, our economy has been strong, and for many years, our gross domestic product grew at an average of about 7%, which was higher than the average for sub-Saharan Africa. This growth enabled our country to join the ranks of what they call the middle-income countries, that is, those countries with per capita incomes exceeding $1,000. This was due principally to the rebasing of our GDP in the year 2010. In saying that, even though there were regional disparities, Ghana's growth was broadly shared and the benefits spread throughout the country, and this allowed overall poverty to decline. We took advantage of the HIPIC initiative to reduce the size of our public debt and debt service payments. This created fiscal space that allowed us to pursue social sector interventions and invest in growth-enhancing infrastructure projects. The discovery of oil offshore Ghana, and as the regional minister for the Western region said, the MC had forgotten that the Western region also produces oil and gas. But the production of oil, petroleum, promised to further enhance Ghana's economic prospects. However, there were exogenous developments that accompanied these positive changes that I've talked about. From about 2008, the global prices of our major commodity exports, that's gold and cocoa, started to decline. But the price of our major import, crude oil, increased. So this contributed to creating imbalances in our trade with the rest of the world. And when you hear people say that the current account is in deficit, it means that we are importing more than we are exporting, and therefore there's an imbalance in our trade with the rest of the world. So, Chairman, also, due to the achievement of our middle income status, the foreign grants that support our budget started to decline. In 2012, there was an abrupt disruption in the supply of gas, which affected our power generation capacity. And so we had to undertake emergency crude oil imports to fire the turbines that generate electricity, especially in the Asogli plant in Tema. But we all felt that this disruption will be temporary, and so we did not adjust prices, and therefore we sustained huge subsidies which had to be paid by the budget. But in all these discussions, the main source of budget imbalance was the single-spine salary policy that was introduced to correct the pay distortions in our public service. Resulting from the single spine, the wage bill expanded and added to the other factors that I've talked about earlier, resulted in significant budget deficits. And these were financed primarily by borrowing from the Bank of Ghana. So this raised interest rates, interest payments increased, and added to the fiscal pressures both on government and on businesses. So in sum, Mr. Chairman, I'm saying that budget pressures have built up because of the single spine, because of the emergency gas imports to generate electricity, because our export earnings have declined, and because the major import oil has increased in price, and therefore we have sustained significant budget deficits, especially since the year 2012. In 2014, the budget attempted to correct the situation and bring the deficit under control. It tried to do this through a number of measures, including the gradual elimination of the petrol and utility subsidies, by restraining the growth of the wage bill, including the imposition of limits on government recruitment, and finally, through a better selection of investment projects that are sponsored by the government of Ghana. But by the first quarter of this year, it was obvious that the budget measures were not achieving the impact we wanted as speedily as we desired. We thought it prudent, therefore, to seek technical and financial support from the International Monetary Fund for a period we feel long enough to bring the fiscal conditions under control in order to restore macroeconomic stability. The reason we have gone to the fund is our belief that it is essential to resolve the short-term difficulties, otherwise they may detract from the favorable medium-term prospects that Ghana holds. The hydrocarbon sector particularly holds prospects for its country. First, in reducing a level of oil imports, and secondly, in lowering the cost of power generation. Cheaper electricity will be a major source of growth in the economy and will contribute to a diversification of our productive base, that is the manufacturing sector. The energy pricing, when they lower, can also attract new investments into the power sector. So we are seeking agreement on the short-term actions that are needed to liberate the full potential of our economy over the medium term. And it was this reason we all went to Senchi in May of this year. Many options were discussed during the discussion leading to the Senchi consensus. And it is my hope that this conference will discuss ways of making practical those options that we discussed in order to implement the Senchi consensus. In Senchi, we recognize that it takes many people to contribute to the economic debate. Some people to develop the ideas, some people to critique the ideas, some to suggest ways for ensuring smooth implementation of those measures. We also acknowledge in Senchi that economic difficulties and economic decisions affect people differently. Therefore, we try to promote the necessity for sharing the burden of development. The idea is that if we all hold hands together, we can go forward together. And that if we all share the burden, we'll be sure all to share the benefits that will follow from the burden sharing. Mr. Chairman, you have chosen a specific theme at a time when the government has initiated discussion on the details of a program with the International Monetary Fund. Your theme, the game change, the role of the regional level of governance. Because the game change is important if we are to make progress on our economy. Many of our citizens have not understood the reasoning behind the decision to seek the technical and financial support of the Economic Monetary Fund in achieving government's economic objectives. But whatever the criticism of the IMF has been, and there have been many, we have to acknowledge that it possesses a global view that we do not have, that it possesses great analytical capacity, and it possesses access to information about other countries that we do not possess. Therefore, the International Monetary Fund can help make an assessment of the rigor of our policies in the light of the policies that have worked in other countries and what policies have failed to work. So we intend to benefit from their insight and their experiences in what the policies we are discussing and whether they will work as they have done so in other countries. A fund program also assures that we will exercise the kind of economic and financial discipline that, as a country, we find difficult to exercise on our own. As I stated earlier, the IMF can provide assurances that we are in the right path in the choices we make, and will point out to us in all honesty, some people say brutal honesty, when the implementation of the policies that we have selected is not up to the standard that is expected of us. So, Chairman, in our initial discussions with the IMF that started last Tuesday, our objective is to deliver jobs and growth with macro stability. Our initial objective is to deliver jobs for our people, the growth of the economy with stable underpinnings. Our previous experience suggests to us that critical to economic adjustment is the participation of all our citizens. We need macroeconomic stability in order to forge ahead, but that macroeconomic stability can only be sustained if it is underlined by social stability. The lack of social stability has been disruptive of other countries' economic progress, and we do not want to make that mistake. Therefore, we have elevated the importance of the social dimension of economic adjustment, as others have done and will continue to do. If all of us as Ghanaians, Mr. Chairman, political parties, organized labor, religious bodies, traditional authorities, academia, and all the people who have raised legitimate concerns about the performance of the economy will agree on the measures that have been taken and support the government in implementing the measures that we agreed in Senchi, would achieve a stable macroeconomic status earlier than the 3 years we have suggested to the International Monetary Fund. And as regional ministers in this conference, the point I'm making is that having agreed on the medicine that we have to take, which can be better, our role as regional ministers is to discuss what sweetness there are that we can incorporate into the program to make the medicine easier to swallow and make the effect quicker. And that is why we have targeted the social dimension, particularly in the discussions with the fund. In the late 1980s, we were faced with a more severe form of economic crisis, and in that program, we introduced the program of actions to mitigate the social costs of adjustment and development. PAMSCAD was a set of safety net interventions designed to mitigate the hardships of the economic program on the vulnerable, the poor, and generally the victims of the adjustments. And this was done, and it was necessary to assure the growth and development of our economy. We need to discuss the kind of social safety net interventions we can introduce today to contribute the role PAMSCAD played then, and how the interventions we identify can be implemented to maximum effect at the regional, the district, the sub-district, and the local levels. Mr. Chairman, there's another dimension to the game change in the economy that should also engage our attention. We are facing these economic challenges in the middle of the implementation of a major program of administrative decentralization with its additional costs in terms of the increase in the number of districts. There are increases in the recurrent cost of the district level, as well as the capital cost of the provision of economic, social, and administrative infrastructure for the 106 districts that have been created in 2003, 2007, and 2012. We know that these investments will pay off in the medium to long term, but in the short term, they add to the fiscal burdens of the economy. Therefore, we must discuss ways of increasing productivity while keeping the anticipated cost to a minimum in order to reduce the overall cost of the program of administrative decentralization. Mr. Chairman, that's why I'm happy that one of the issues you'll be discussing at the conference is using the the local economic development, or LED, to change the economic paradigm of the regions and the districts. If we can effectively utilize the local raw materials and economic potential in our districts in partnership with the local private sector and financial institutions, we can improve the economic environment for employment and income generation, increase productivity and infrastructure. Too much lip service has been paid to the LED, that's the local economic development. The policy and operational manual, of which I'm informed, have been ready for more than a year now. So we need to move from making words to making action. Mr. Chairman, the public-private partnership, or PPP, is another mechanism for injecting dynamism into regional and district economies. Again, just as I said with respect to the LED, the national PPP document was outlawed more than 3 years ago by the Ministry of Finance, but I'm informed that it is still being modified to make it district assembly friendly, and which will enable it to be implemented at the regional and district levels. I want this conference to discuss the PPP within the context of the LED discussion and find out how you can remove the obstacles delaying the use of this mechanism to achieve enhanced economic performance. Mr. Chairman, there's yet another item on the agenda. The IMCC has initiated a program to introduce regional level budget line into the national budget to allow the aggregation of the budget of the regional coordinating councils and the budgets of the departments of the RCC into a kind of regional composite budget that will eliminate regional dependence on the Office of the Chief of Staff at the Presidency for your funding. This is a fundamental change which will introduce flexibility into regional level governance, deepen decentralization, and make the functions of coordination, harmonization, monitoring, and evaluation easy to perform. As the implementers and ultimate beneficiaries of this proposed system, you should follow the presentation and discuss it thoroughly so that you can anticipate the possible pitfalls and provide against them in evolving the framework. Mr. Chairman, the district level elections comprising the district assembly and unit committee elections are to be held early next year. Regional ministers and district chief executives, as chairmen of the Regional Security Committee and District Security Committees, respectively, have critical roles to play in ensuring that a congenial atmosphere is created for the elections to take place. Because they are non-partisan elections, you should play your roles in ensuring that there's a massive turnout to provide legitimacy for the structures of local governance, namely metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies, the sub-metropolitan district councils, the urban, zonal, town and area councils, and the unit committees. In particular, you should be able to form task forces out of the various public education organizations you have in your regions to embark on public education. I refer in particular to the National Commission for Civic Education, the Information Service Department, the Department of Social Welfare and Community Development, and the Non-Formal Education Division of the Ministry of Education. To conclude, Mr. Chairman, you have assembled resource persons with significant expertise to guide you. I'm looking at Professor Kwame Nahoy. I'm saying that you have assembled resource persons such as Professor Kwame Nahoy with significant expertise to guide you. I have no doubt that your conference will come out with proposals that reflect the need for change in our economic management, and that you understand the roles you have to play in order to make that change happen. On behalf of President John Mahama, I have the greatest pleasure in declaring this third conference of the sixth government of the Fourth Republic duly open. I thank you for your attention.
I think we can do it later. Let's now begin for the Vice President of this Republic.
Right, and so let's finish our conversation with Rafiq Salam, who's still over the telephone. Rafiq,
Yeah.
how long is this conference expected to take?
It's supposed to be a 3-day conference starting from today, and they're expecting it to end on Friday.
I see. And who are we expecting at the conference?
The conference is being attended by all 10 regional ministers, and then also their chief directors, they are right here, and also some resource persons like Professor Kwame Nawai, they are in here to take them through the conference.
Thank you very much, Rafiq, for that information. Rafiq Salam joined us from the Upper West region, Lawra specifically.